Good morning. I'm Terry, and welcome to TARDIS Spider. Today, gangster films. Now, I enjoy gangster films, as I hope you do, but the genre is much wider than I thought it was. So today I will focus on Depression era and Prohibition era gangster films. So let's watch these gangster films, and we will return to Doctor Who next week. The Public Enemy, 1931, starring James Cagney, Jean Harlow, Edward Woods, and Joan Blondell. The Public Enemy is an American gangster film released in 1931. It became a classic and propelled its lead, James Cagney, to superstardom. The story traces the life of an impoverished young man, Tom Powers, played by Cagney, as he escalates from being a petty criminal to heading a murderous bootlegging ring. Although he achieves tremendous power, he is haunted by family conflicts and a sense of overconfidence that ultimately ends in tragedy. Jean Harlow played the small but memorable role of Cagney's glamorous Moll. As with the crime film Little Caesar, The Public Enemy was a reflection of its era and was released at a time when infamous gangsters were making headlines on a daily basis. In addition, just as the latter film made Edward G. Robinson a star, Warner Brothers caught lightning in a bottle a second time with the casting of Cagney. Now, he was initially meant to play the second lead to Edward Woods. However, director William Wellman was so impressed with Cagney's intensity that he had the actors switch roles, thus facilitating a landmark performance in cinematic history. Now, the scene that has retained the greatest infamy is not one of overt violence, but rather a grim sequence in which Cagney slams a grapefruit into actress Mae Clarke's face. White Heat, 1949. It stars James Cagney, Virginia Mayo, and Edmund O'Brien. Released in 1949, White Heat is considered the definitive James Cagney vehicle, and perhaps the best of the Warner Brothers crime dramas. Cody is played by James Cagney. He is a cold-blooded killer who has an uncomfortable relationship with his domineering mother. When Jarrett learns of her murder while he is in prison, he virtually wrecks the mess hall in a fit of uncontrolled rage. Soon after, he and several other inmates, one of whom was actually an undercover agent, escape from prison. After Jarrett's gang decides to rob a chemical factory, the agent alerts the police of their plans. In the ensuing gunfight, Jarrett becomes cornered atop an oil refinery tank. He screams, "Made it, Ma! Top of the world!" as he unloads his gun into the tank and dies in the resulting inferno. Probably more so than any other film, White Heat epitomized James Cagney as the king of the gangster genre. Don't nobody get nervous. You ain't got nothing to fear. You're being robbed by the John Dillinger gang. That's the best there is. The few dollars you lose here today, they're going to buy you stories. Stories to tell your children and great-grandchildren. This could be one of the big moments of your life. Don't make it your last. That's Warren Oates as John Dillinger from the 1973 film Dillinger. This movie stars Warren Oates as John Dillinger, Ben Johnson as Melvin Purvis, Richard Dreyfuss as Babyface Nelson, Steve Kennelly as Pretty Boy Floyd, and Harry Dean Stanton as Homer Van Meter. Michelle Phillips will make her acting debut as Billy Frechette. This version of the Dillinger story is from the eyes of the hunter, Melvin Purvis. For 18 months, Dillinger will terrorize the law, the public, and of course, the banks. In 2009, we revisit the John Dillinger story. Public Enemies. Johnny Depp stars as John Dillinger. Christian Bale is Melvin Purvis. But don't worry, Babyface Nelson, Pretty Boy Floyd, Homer Van Meter, and Alvin Karpis are in the story. But this time, the viewpoint is from the eyes of Billy Frechette, Dillinger's girlfriend. Depression-era bank robber John Dillinger has charm, charisma, and the audacity to endear him to the public. He's also a thorn in the side of J. Edgar Hoover's FBI. Hoover will send his top agent, Melvin Purvis, to catch him. Dillinger will be named Public Enemy No. 1 in June 1934. In the end, the lady in red will aid the FBI, and this will end the life and the career of John Dillinger. Bonnie and Clyde. In 1967, Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway will star as Bonnie and Clyde. This movie is based on the exploits of the Depression-era robbers Bonnie and Clyde. Clyde will turn a chance encounter with a bored small-town girl, Bonnie Parker, into a notorious crime spree. They will be joined by Clyde's brother and his wife and dim-witted C.W. Moss. They will outrun the law for over 2 years until a fateful encounter on a lonely country road. So let's close this one with the last stanza of a poem attributed to Bonnie Parker. Someday they'll go down together, and they'll bury them side by side. To few it'll be grief, to the law a relief, but it's death for Bonnie and Clyde. 1987 will bring us The Untouchables. Kevin Costner stars as Elliot Ness, Sean Connery as Jim Malone. Robert De Niro is Al Capone. Al Capone builds a bootlegging empire and rules Chicago with an iron fist. Throughout Prohibition, Elliot Ness tries to get Capone. These efforts are thwarted by a corrupt legal and government system in Chicago. Ness will recruit a team of elite lawmen who can't be bribed or scared off. This will include Irish cop Jimmy Malone. They are the Untouchables, and together they will bring Al Capone down. In 1959, Rod Steiger is Al Capone. One of the best gangster biopics, Capone has a sure sense of period. It has a reluctance to whitewash the brutal criminal. Nevertheless, the film stands or falls according to how you feel about Rod Steiger. This is undeniably his film. His magnetic performance is so full of detail and mannerisms that one could accuse it of arrogance, were it not entirely appropriate for the character of Capone. Lucian Ballard's monochrome camera work is superb, as is Wilkins' unhurried, unsentimental direction. This time, Jason Robards is Al Capone. The St. Valentine's Day Massacre, 1967. Jason Robards stars as Al Capone. Ralph Meeker is Bugs Moran. Clint Ritchie is Jack McGurn. The St. Valentine's Day Massacre is the moment the world turned on Al Capone. Based on true events, this film follows the events leading up to that fateful day. Rival gangs led by Capone and Bugs Moran control illegal alcohol in Chicago. Both want to be the big boss and the most powerful man in Chicago. Capone's men will disguise themselves as police officers and in cold blood murder 7 members of the Moran gang. The result is a bloody gang war. The government finds a way to get rid of the winner, Al Capone. This week, a favorite series, Allo, Allo, will return to the streaming landscape. It's on Amazon Prime. Renee Artois and the others will use sexual innuendo and farce as they wait for the British to release them from the occupation of the Nazis during World War II. Enjoy Allo, Allo, and enjoy your journey through time and space. And next week, we will return to Doctor Who. Good night.